record too, in case.
Yeah, just in case. Yeah, good idea.
Yep. All right. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday, and thank you so much for joining our Microsoft Azure Power Lunch here. Today I'm going to present on Azure DevOps project. This is a new service that is still in preview, and it's very interesting, and it makes developers very productive. So I'll talk about that. So a little bit about myself. I am a Azure TSP based in Austin, Texas, and I've been with Microsoft for almost 10 years. Been working on several technologies, and now I'm working on Azure. And this is my Twitter handle, so if you want to follow me, that's @Siraj MOHD. Okay, so to start our session, generally we cover some of the Azure service updates, and here are a few that kind of caught my attention this week. The first one is Azure Backup now supports BitLocker encrypted, key encrypted Azure virtual machines. So this is the great news. Also, we have released a Azure Cosmos DB Spark connector. So let's go and take a look at some other updates as well. So as you can see, there are a few updates related to network security groups. So augmented rules for NSG are generally available, and this is very important. So if you are creating some complex security rules, then you can use augmented rules, and that makes complex security rules much more simpler. We have also announced the public preview for application security group in all the regions. And I'll not go through the details of these, but this is also something important. And another one is we have extended options for accessing Azure Cloud Shell through PowerShell, or actually through your browser, and also through your Visual Studio Code terminal. So this is something that you can take a look. Okay, so these are some of the updates for this week. Now let's go ahead and dive into our session on Azure DevOps project. So why DevOps project? So it's make Azure getting started super easy for with DevOps pre-configured. So I know, I am a developer, and I have whenever in the past I have tried to set up a Azure web apps, I have to think about so many things that, hey, where am I going to set up my source code repo? How am I going to configure my CI/CD pipeline? And then how am I going to deploy it? So it takes quite some time for me to set up an app and deploy it to Azure. And there are certain things that I have to configure down the line. And now with the DevOps project, you can get started with Azure in less than 5 minutes, and this is amazing. So this makes you much more productive, especially if you're creating some kind of proof of concepts, or if you want to learn a new service or a new platform on Azure. This makes you you can quickly start and set it up very quickly, and then. So the goal of the DevOps project is to support any language and any framework going forward. At this point, we only support few popular languages, which I'll show you in my demo. And also, moving forward, our goal is to give the option to deploy your source code to any platforms on Azure. Right now, we only deploy it on Azure Web App. But moving forward, we will be targeting some other services like Azure Functions, or manage Kubernetes and things like that. It also gives you built-in application monitoring, and it's all cloud powered. So the whole DevOps pipeline is set up using Visual Studio Team Services. Okay, so today actually I am going to highlight a scenario. I know that these are some amazing days for containers and microservices, and as we see that the whole development paradigm is shifting from monolithic application to microservices, and container is a key player in creating those microservices, and the adoption is phenomenal. So whenever I'm talking to my customer, most of the time, if you talk to their development teams, they talk about containers and the DevOps with container, the container orchestrator, and best practices. So today I will be covering a scenario, a DevOps scenario with containers. So as you can see here, create a small animation to make it easier to understand. A developer, okay, wait a second, let me start again. So I have picked a few tools of my choice, but it can be different tools. So like here, I have picked up VS Code to kind of create my project, and I'm storing my source code in GitHub, and I am using Visual Studio Team Services as my CI/CD mechanism, and I'm using my Azure Container Registry to publish my images, and finally they will be deployed to Azure Web App. So this is a very traditional workflow without using DevOps project. So if you have to start creating it from the scratch, this is how it will work. So you can create your code in Docker file in VS Code, and then you'll deploy it to GitHub, and then as soon as it is deployed to GitHub, it will fire a build in vsds, and then the vsds build engine will generate the Docker image, and that Docker image will be deployed to your container registry through the release through the vsds host agent. Will push it to container registry with a specific tag, and then the vsds release pipeline or CD pipeline will let the Azure Web App know that, hey, there is a new image that you have to deploy, and then Azure Web App, Container Web App will go to your container registry, pull that image, and deploy it to Azure Web App. So this is like a traditional pipeline for containers. And so on the other branch, you can see if I want to pick up Jenkins, I can deploy a Jenkins build server, and the same thing. Anyone checks in code in GitHub, Jenkins will fire. Pick up that chain, create a container image. It can deploy to the Docker Hub registry or Azure Container Registry. So both are supported with Jenkins. And then from there, in the second thing, you see that there is a Kubernetes cluster. Now that Kubernetes cluster can be deployed anywhere. The thing will be the Jenkins will tell Kubernetes cluster that, hey, there is a new image in the Docker, and it will kind of give a new manifest file to Kubernetes cluster, and Kubernetes cluster can go and pull up the Docker image or images from either Docker Hub or from Azure Container Registry and deploy it to the cluster. And then finally, once the deployment is complete, the application can see the new code actually, or the output of the whole deployment. So this is a traditional pipeline. There is no you have to set this up manually if you have to do it today. Now, let me show you a demo that how you can set up this complete pipeline using DevOps project in Azure. Okay, so let's open up my browser window. Okay, so here I am on my Azure portal. So let's pull up Azure portal here.
I think you're still sharing your presentation, man.
Okay, can you confirm what do you see? Is still my screen, or do you all see a browser window with Azure portal? Or do you see my presentation?
Your presentation.
Okay, so let me unshare and reshare. And this is a little bit strange because okay, I just reshared my screen. So do you all see the browser window now?
It's coming up, I think.
Loading.
Loading? Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
All right, perfect. So I am on my Azure portal, and now I'm going to create a resource, and this resource is called DevOps project. So I can quickly go here and I can create a DevOps project. So now here you can see this this screen. This gives me a few options here. So I can say, hey, I want to start fresh with a new application, and I can pick up what kind of application that I want to deploy. So right now we are limited to .NET, Node, PHP, Python, but there are several other languages and frameworks on our roadmap like Go or Ruby on Rails. So for this demo, let's pick up a .NET application. So I go to next step, and you see it gives me more options. So hey, do you want to deploy a traditional .NET Framework app, or do you want to deploy a .NET Core app? So I can pick up one of those from here. Now, if I go to node.js, you will see my workflow shows me different options. Like, hey, you want to deploy Express app, or Sail, or I can also deploy a Node sample app actually from here. So these options will continue to grow as the DevOps project will, going through the iterations, and before it goes GA, we'll see much more options. So let's pick up a ASP.NET Core project here. Now here, once again, I can see where do I want to deploy my app. So I can pick up a web app for Linux, or web app for container. So now here, moving forward, you will start seeing more platforms. Let's say I want to deploy my app on VMs, or I want to deploy my app on Azure Function, or maybe a Kubernetes cluster. So you will see more options here going forward. So for this one, let's pick up Azure Web App for Containers, because this is a scenario that we are going to use today. And I can click next. Here, I can connect my project with my VSDS account. So if you have a VSDS account, you can use existing one. So I can pick up my VSDS account. If you don't have one, you can create a new one. And as you know, like, there are several options to use VSDS. First 5 user VSDS accounts are free, so you can use a free account, or you can use your corporate account. So here I can say, hey, this is my Azure Power Lunch project, and here I can pick up my Azure subscription. So you can click on change here, and you can see more options. So here I can say, hey, my resource group name is going to be Azure Power Lunch RG, and I can give an app name. I can pick up my location and the pricing tier. So I'll keep it as one. And also, so what it's going to do is it is going to create an app for me. It is going to create a DevOps project for me, and it will also integrate an application insight resource in my app. So as you can see, it is actually creating an application insight, and I can specify my location here. So I'm doing it for South Central. And very interesting, it can also create a container registry for you. So if I go back to my demo here, on my slide, and you see that this is, once the image is built, it is deployed to a container registry. So I don't have to actually go and manually create it. This process will create this container registry for me. And I can specify a name here. So I can see my container registry, and I can pick up whether it's going to be standard or premium and location. And I click OK, and that's all. I'll just say, hey, done, and it's going to start creating my DevOps project. So it is going to take some time to create. So meanwhile, I have actually already created some DevOps projects, which I can walk you through. So when you first time create your DevOps project, it's going to create a resource group for you, and it will be the resource group name will be VSDS resource group. So I can click here, and now after so next time onwards, any DevOps projects you create, they will go in VSDS resource group. So this is the one resource group it creates for DevOps projects, and it creates another resource group that is project specific. So like for this project, it's going to create a resource group Azure Power Lunch. For my previous one, it is a DevOps project resource group. So I can go here, and I can take a look at one of my existing DevOps projects. So let's pick up Azure DevOps project, and this is a ASP.NET Core deployment. It's almost same as what I have picked up right now. So you will see this cool dashboard here, and on this dashboard you can see kind of a snapshot of your complete VSDS pipeline. So you can see this is my CI/CD pipeline, my code, my build pipeline, my release pipeline. You see my code repository here, and you can also go and look at your app services and application insights. So pretty good, pretty good snapshot for my complete DevOps pipeline. Now from here, I can also go to my repository, pipeline. I can look at my other vsds options as well. So let's go to the code. So I'm going to repo. So this is where my code is. So for this project, actually, I have cloned my code to my local desktop, and I will make some changes and just show you how this pipeline works. But before that, let's walk through the pipeline. So DevOps project create a build definition for me. So if I go to build, this is my build, and let's edit the build to see what is going on here. Perfect. So it is getting source from my repo, which is it created, and it is running this build on a hosted agent on VSTS. So you can see here, and then it has these tasks that it is running. So first task is build an image, and these tasks will be depending on what kind of project you're choosing. So for Node, maybe it has to install the npm, so it will do the npm install. So for this particular project, it's ASP.NET Core container app. So we are building the image for our container app. So you can see it is building the image, and here it is picking up the Docker file. So this Docker file is automatically created for you, and it is pushing that image to Azure Container Registry. So this is the name of the image, and you can see my build ID is a tag for my image, and in the next step, it is pushing my image to my Azure Container Registry. And it also had created an endpoint for my container registry, so you don't have to do it. If you have to do it yourself, you'll have to first create a endpoint for your container registry and refer it here. But DevOps project did it for me, so it's very useful. And it is deploying this, pushing this image to my Azure Container Registry. So this is my build pipeline. Now let's go to release. And this is, let me go here on my release pipeline, and as you can see, let's go and edit the release definition. And here, so continuous deployment trigger is enabled by default. So as soon as the build is completed, it is going to trigger the deployment. And in my deployment, basically there is a task. So if you have to create yourself, you can pick up this task that's called deploy Azure app service. And in this task, it is telling my app service that the DevOps project created for me that, hey, there is a new image in the container registry with a build ID this. So this is the tag of that image, and go ahead and pull and deploy this image. So this complete pipeline is created for me through my DevOps project. So let's go and make a change. I have already cloned my app, so I'm going to go and say your Azure Power Lunch application. Okay, so before I check in, I can show you that I can go to my endpoint, my site, and if I go to my about page, it is saying your application new description page. So I made this change on my Visual Studio Code. I save it. I can check it in. So it is showing me that, hey, there is one change that you made. And so I have changed my message from your application new super description to your Power Lunch application. And let's say new commit commit my change, and then I can push it. So you can either push it from here, or I can click on this icon here, and then this is doing a push. Okay, so hopefully. All right, perfect. So this change is pushed to my repo. So let's go back here and just refresh this. And I can go to my code, and I can see in my controller, hopefully the change is here. Yep, so you can see now our message is your Azure Power Lunch application. This is the change that we have made. So what happened, as soon as we made the change, actually, you should see a new build triggered. Okay, so our build is in progress. So I can click on my build and I can see what's going on here. Okay, so it's running the last 45 seconds. Might take a couple more minutes here to complete the build. Okay, so while the build, okay, so you can see the build started, full complete, and here you can see the complete build logs. And like I said, it might take a minute or so. So it is restoring package. So while it is running, let me show you the Docker file. So the Docker file for this project is actually this, and this Docker file is also created when your project is created. And here you can see it's first doing a build. So this is creating an image first using ASP.NET Core build, and you are actually setting up a working directory, which is your app, and then we are copying the whole project here in our working directory and running .NET Restore, and then we are running .NET Publish, and then we are after that we are creating a runtime image using ASP.NET Core Docker image, and then here we are saying, hey, my entry point is this ASP.NET Core .NET. This is the name of my DLL that is created by publishing this project. So, okay, so this is my Docker file, and I can make change if I want. Okay, so seems like my build is completed and successful. So now, because my build is successful, it should have triggered a release because I have set up a continuous deployment. So that's great. I can see my release started actually. So let's go to my release and just see what's going on here. Okay. Okay, so my release actually, it seems like it's completed pretty quickly. So let's go back and refresh my page. And now you should see a new message here. Ooh, so now you can see your Azure Power Lunch application. So it has, kind of swapped the container image from this new image, and now you see a new page here. So this is completely done through my Azure DevOps project. So let's go and take a little bit more look on the application. So it created, like I said, it created 2 resource groups for me. So let's go to the resource group, which was Azure Power Lunch. So this is my new resource group. So this one is also finished. It has created an app insight resource for me and integrated that resource with my app service. It has created a container registry for me, and it has created an app service plan for me. So let's go to a different one. Oops, sorry.
Suraj, there are some questions in the window.
Yes. So one more second. I just wanted to show you one more thing, and then I can take the kind of question. So this is my container registry, and as you can see, this is where my images are pushed. So I go to my repo, and this is my DevOps repo, and you can see all my images are here. So my last one was 73. So this is pushed here. And if I go to my app settings, I want to show you some environment variables there. So I can go to my app. And you can take a detailed look at these app settings here. Actually, go to Docker container. Yep. So these are the settings that is telling my Azure web app that where to go and how to pull the image actually. So yep. So these are my environment variables. So you can see this changed my image name to 73 when the CD kicked in, and then this also has my registry name and username and password and all that kind of stuff. So now you can go further and explore your web application. Also, one more thing I want to say is this is just like a jump start for you now. But let's say if I want to make some changes, I want to make change to my build definition. I want to run some tests, some integration testing, or let's say in my release, if I want to release it to my test environment first, and then if add some kind of phase gates to it, approvals before releasing to production, you can make all those changes for you. So DevOps project just set up this kind of a bootstrap view with this CI/CD pipeline, and you can go ahead and make any changes that you want to. All right, so let's see what are the questions. Okay.
Yeah, sure. I can ask you. Yeah. So I do have a Kubernetes cluster that I need to deploy it to on Red Hat. Would you have any parallel of what you showed? Because you're using Azure Container Services, right?
Yeah.
So if I have a plain old vanilla Kubernetes cluster to deploy my app on VMs that are Red Hat, do you have any guidelines for that?
Well, so right now what you are trying to do is you are deploying a vanilla Kubernetes cluster on a Red Hat VMs on Azure, right? That's
correct. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean there could be several things. So first of all, have you looked at managed Kubernetes services that you can?
Not yet, but I would like to see if. Rather than managed, because it's going to be paid service. It's a huge deployment for us, so we have to take cost into consideration on a recurring basis. So I just wanted to see how, if I have to have plain vanilla Kubernetes cluster deployment, is there any guideline in Azure that's not tightly coupled with a vsds?
So when you are actually deploying the cluster, you will use the Kubernetes tool to deploy the cluster, right?
Yes, exactly.
You must be using kubeadm, right, to deploy
Yep, with the CTL command set. Yep.
Exactly. So once your cluster is deployed, you can use vsds. So you can make a connection. You can connect your vsds to your Kubernetes cluster. So there is a way that you can. I can send you offline the instructions that will let you connect your vsds to your Kubernetes cluster, and then once it is connected, rest everything will stay same like we did here in CI/CD pipeline. Instead of deploying to your Azure web app, you will deploy your image to your Kubernetes cluster. And I mean, there are different steps for your deployment. I mean, you will use the Kubernetes manifest file to tell Kubernetes how to do that deployment. So yes, you can definitely do all that using vsds or any tool of your choice.
Do you have any documentation like Microsoft Doc on this that you are familiar with or have looked at?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of docs, and I will send it to you. I have your email, so I'll send it to you.
That'll be great because I have a huge deployment, and we really need to validate it.
Okay, and let's see if I have your email ID.
Yeah, I can just put it in there. Here we go.
Okay. Yeah, just put in the email ID and I'll I'll let you know. And I will also send you some other options. Like you said, the cost is a consideration for you all. So managed Kubernetes is like it will be much more cost effective for you instead of using
Excellent.
right? So because you're using Red Hat, you're paying for Red Hat licensing. But with managed Kubernetes, we don't charge for managing your cluster. And we manage your master nodes, so you don't have to worry about that. You just have to worry about your, the worker nodes.
So yeah, so every VM for Red Hat is an IaaS, and then you're saying apply managed Kubernetes on top of that?
Well,
is that what you're saying?
You can actually deploy a managed Kubernetes, the whole Kubernetes cluster using Kubernetes managed Kubernetes services on VM. So you don't have to create these VMs, run kubeadm, and deploy the cluster. We will deploy it for you.
Okay, but do you have an option to decouple that, because I already have these deployed in production, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think so. We have an option right now to decouple, but let's think offline, and I can give you some options here.
Sure. If you just send me an email, Siraj, that'll be great.
Okay. Yes, I'll do that. Absolutely. Thank
you. And what's your email? I'll just ask this question to you. How do you?
Yeah.
I think I have it.
It's right here.
I think. Thank you very much, Siraj. Appreciate it, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, perfect. Any other questions? All right, great. So if there are no more questions, you all have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you very much. You too. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Siraj.
Thank you. Bye.